I wasn't interested in making a part 4. I felt like that was going to be death. If we were going to be able to like try to stand on our own 2 feet, we had to get some distance from it. But I also didn't want to abandon this awesome storyline of Caesar. And that's ultimately, after many, many iterations, this is what you see here. We came with this kind of idea of let's do a part 1.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, the Planet of the Apes enters a new dawn in director Wes Ball's sci-fi adventure, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Set 300 years after the events of the previous Apes trilogy, the film tells the story of a young ape named Noah, who defies his tyrannical king and teams up with a human to embark on a harrowing journey. On his quest, he uncovers mysteries that lead him to question everything he's been taught and make choices that will define a future for apes and humans alike. In addition to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Ball's other directorial credits include the feature film The Maze Runner and its sequel films The Scorched Trials and The Death Cure, and the short films A Work in Progress and Ruin. Following a screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Ball spoke with director Barry Jenkins about filming Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
So Wes and I went to film school together.
25 years we've known each other.
Exactly. Not many people know that. But when they called me up and said Wes was doing a DGA Q&A, I had to be here.
Thank you, Barry.
Well, I just want to say, Wes and I are both from Florida. This is a self-made filmmaker, which is what I amongst many things, what I love about Wes. When we first moved out to LA, he just spent 5 years making this short film called Ruin. And he was like, I was like, Wes, what the hell are you doing? You're so talented. You should be making movies. He's like, I am. I'm making this movie. That movie begot Maze Runner, the trilogy. And then, yes, shout out to Maze Runner, all the Maze Runner fans who also are here on Mother's Day.
Good practice.
And then from that, you came into to this world. So talk to me about going from the Maze Runner trilogy to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, so I had finished that Maze Runner trilogy, and it was it did its thing. And then I started doing Mouse Guard. I don't know if anyone ever saw any of that stuff, but that was this gigantic motion capture thing that I was doing with Matt Reeves as producer and Andy Serkis. I had cast as well. So I was already kind of dipping my feet in this kind of mocap thing. And we got 2 weeks before we started shooting when the merger happened with Fox and Disney. And we were a victim of that. And so while we're licking our wounds, feeling bad for ourselves, at the time, Emma Watts, the president at Fox there, said, yeah, sorry this happened, but what would you do with the next Planet of the Apes? And I said, what? I was hesitant, honestly, to follow up those previous 3 movies. But we eventually kind of came up with this take that felt like it was, I've said it before, so forgive me if you guys have heard this before, but I wasn't interested in making a part 4. I felt like that was going to be death. If we were going to be able to like try to stand on our own 2 feet, we had to get some distance from it, but I also didn't want to abandon this awesome storyline of Caesar. And so when we got Rick and Amanda involved, who wrote Rise and producers on the previous 3, we came up with this kind of idea of let's do a part 1. You know what I mean? And that's ultimately, after many, many iterations, this is what you see here. So that's kind of the story of my journey to the Apes world.
A little bit of trivia, because Wes took Mouse Guard to a certain point, and then the movie did not happen. We actually made Mufasa, the Lion King, in the building that Wes built to make Mouse Guard with the crew that Wes built.
With some of the crew, right? Yeah.
So I called him up and said, hey, what do you think about me doing this? He's like, oh, where are you going to do it? I told him where. He's like, oh, yeah, those people are so primed. They're ready to go. Go ahead and do it.
It's good that all that money we spent didn't go to waste. It went over to Barry.
I want to come back to this film. So you are right. There's a really wonderful trilogy that came before the film that you made. And you start this film off with, I think, a really beautiful sort of nod to that trilogy. and then you move just far past it immediately. In that way, the audience has a bit of information about what they're seeing, and they're ahead of the characters in the film for probably the next hour. How did you go about balancing that?
Yeah, I mean, that was to me like the exciting idea was that cut, that several 100-year cut. I was like, oh, that's cool. Because that just opens up so many opportunities. It's like we get to explore a world, rediscover it through the eyes of this ape that doesn't know anything about the world. You know what I mean? So there's that kind of irony that's kind of hanging over the scene constantly, and you get to see, which is kind of what this movie is about, this sort of idea of knowledge and how it can get lost and twisted and manipulated in a way, use it as like a weapon. And so it was fun just to play with that idea of rediscovering this world, of apes. I mean, there's plenty of times in the human history where, we've discovered these amazing kind of technological or scientific, discoveries, and then we lose it for hundreds of years. You know what I mean? And it's only to be rediscovered again, by some other kind of guy. So I thought it was a cool concept to play with that here, where, this Noah character was this kind of sponge that was going to soak up all these different ideas of who this guy Caesar was. You know what I mean? The wrong version, the right version, and everyone in between. And it just served really well to kind of let him kind of basically take that torch. And I love that idea of this little flame of Caesar that we all kind of hold in such high regard. The true flame was kind of dying out. In fact, it almost died with this one character if it wasn't for this chimpanzee, fate dropping him through the ceiling and meeting him. And now it will spread and continue on into the hopefully future movies, just interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, knowing you personally, I expected there was going to be a lot of spectacle in this film, some really kick-ass mise-en-scène and the action set pieces. But also, too, because of this world, the Apes world, I assume there would be also these very thoughtful, intellectual sort of like dynamics, these conundrums that the film is wrestling with, that you do so well with. And yet in this film, this is the first time you're working with this level of motion capture, correct? With the actors. How was that? Was it a hindrance? Was it a blessing? What did you learn? How did it influence your aesthetic?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, you're right. I don't think I've ever done a movie where I had a camera on sticks until this movie. So like we have a lot of scenes here where it's just quiet. It's just still. And that's kind of new for me. And it was something we discovered when we were shooting the movie where I did a couple scenes where I did my usual thing, or I'm flying the camera around, or I'm on a jib arm or something like that, just being fancy. And it somehow was taking away from the kind of, the realness of it all, because we have this totally high-tech, cutting-edge technological thing on display. It felt like it was a hat on the hat to have this camera being too fancy. So we actually went back and reshot a few of those things to be simple like that, where you can just sit there and watch this magic happen with Weta converting our actors' performances into these living, breathing, talking, apes. And it was just wild. Obviously it was a huge amount of trust because I don't see those images for sometimes a year, after we make our choices. That's what's so crazy about this process, making this movie, is that we were talking about it behind the scenes, that you basically shoot the movie twice. You shoot the movie with your actors out on stage with all this technology surrounding them, with their camera on their face and dots on their face and all this kind of stuff. Just a regular old, traditional live action shoot. And then after you've got the take you want, you clear them out and you reshoot that shot again with no actor there. And as you can see in some of those shots, it's super handheld, super dynamic. How the hell do you do that with nothing in the frame for the cameraman to line up to, right? How do you get the focus pulls to time right? All that kind of stuff. It was wild to try to figure all that stuff out. And it ended up being basically that, I'm used to getting like 30, 40 setups a day on the previous movies. I get 12 here. So that just forced a kind of economy on our side to just let the camera be simple at times and let the kind of actors do their thing. And then trust that Weta, was going to come out the other end with this brilliant work,
You call it economy. I call it thoughtfulness. I call it diligence, a very organized shoot. A little bit of history. Wes, in film school, Wes's first short film at our film school, you got a 16 millimeter Bolex camera. And the first assignment was you get 100 feet of film. You had to go out, make a short with all in-camera effects, all in-camera transitions. Wes made a remake of The Matrix called The Metrics. And my entire roll of film...
I even had bullet time in it.
It had bullet time. My entire roll of film was out of focus because I didn't know shit about making movies at that point. But I remember later in the semester, I made this little film with my friends, and I'll never forget. This is why I wanted to do this, because I wanted to thank you in front of all these people. Wes Ball came up to me and said, "Hey, Barry, that was a really cool shot you did, man." I was like, "What?" Yeah. I wrote off that for the next 2 years of film school because this cat has
the
said
thing about Barry is that he was in film school, but he was the writer. You were like a serious writer, you know? And I remember saying, "Oh man, you're gonna write me a movie one day, Barry." You know, and then here he comes coming out, Mr. Oscar over here, showing us all how to do it.
I'm in for the rest of the trilogy. All right. I'll write it and Wes can direct it. All right.
But yeah,
you guys are our witness.
But Barry, the talent was obvious, you know, including James Laxton, who's obviously done your movies. It's like, there was something special immediately. You can see it, you know, when you watch these movies that we were all making, we were so just instinct level, right? We didn't know what the hell we were doing, but yeah, I was always playing around with the ambitious stuff, I guess, and getting in too deep on things.
Back to this. So May and Noah are the two protagonists of this film. You guys have seen it, so there's no spoilers. As you're sort of building their dual narratives, again, there are things that the audience knows that Noah doesn't know. We know nothing about May, the film, or the audience. Talk about calibrating sort of that dynamic so that when the turn comes late in the film, it's this surprise, but it's a surprise that makes you want to lean in and not lean away.
Yeah. I mean, what we thought was interesting, I did not come up with the May storyline. That was Josh. You know, I had this idea of this Noah character. I kept calling him Curious George. I like this idea of this curious ape, you know, that would go around and go all these crazy adventures. But I knew there needed to be a human element in it. That's the core of these movies always, is the dynamic between humans and apes. And it was Josh who came up with this idea, like, you know, I kept thinking the feral now. Last time we saw Woody Harrelson, the virus got him, and you know, we saw that storyline of how it connects to the '68 movie. And then he said, "No, there's more out there, and we're going to do this kind of almost like a secret agent thing, you know." And like she's a character that's kind of this little mystery that you get to unravel slowly over the course of the movie until ultimately what you realize is, you know, I thought it was interesting at the very beginning of the movie that you would think this was a story about an ape named Noah. And then by the end of the movie, right towards around the middle, it starts to fork basically. And by the end of the movie, you realize it's actually a story about an ape named Noah and a human named May. And that, if we're lucky, can carry us off into much more stories that's really more of a dual hander, you know, between these two characters and what they've experienced together and how that's going to kind of, you know, paint the situations they find themselves in the future, if we're lucky. So that was the trick, you know, and to figure out how to kind of, you know, play that mystery out. And you start to realize that she knows more and that she's being deceptive for good reason, perhaps because she doesn't know if she can trust apes. She's got different ideas about who apes are until the very end of the movie. Obviously, I mean, literally the very end of the movie, you know, you actually do show that there is a whole lot more. There's you know, of her side of this equation. You know what I mean?
How many days did you shoot for?
72 days. I came in $5 million on the budget. That was cool. I could have used it, but whatever. You know, you always want to shoot more. But we had to get to post. We were so tight on this movie. It was crazy because we had to do it. We had to do the post in less time than the previous movies. You know, fortunately, Wed had done this before. So it was like, okay, we're going to be okay. And then of course we get like, let's push the release date up 2 weeks, you know, halfway through. So that became a real struggle for us, but we got through it, and it's, you know, a big testament to not just the folks at Weta, Eric Winquist, but also our VFX crew and our post-editorial crew that has to balance this crazy puzzle of how this whole thing works. I mean, you're juggling multiple versions of the movie constantly, you know, because you're not only kind of juggling the performance that you want to cut with, but you're also juggling the clean plate underneath it, and then those things don't always line up. You know, so it's really wild. You know, until really it's like first time I saw this movie put together was actually like 3 or 4 weeks ago. You know what I mean? So it's the first time so much of it is just this leap of faith that you're saying, okay, that's going to work.
Well, but let me ask you, how much does it line up with what you saw either in your head or what you feel like you got on set?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much, I would say aesthetically, it absolutely is. I mean, story-wise, it always changes, right? There's so much. There's probably more story changed in this movie and post and editing than any movie I've ever done. You know, because we kind of have that power. I have several scenes that were basically created whole cloth because I have clean plates, so I can take a performance from that scene and put it into this scene. You know, it can do it's amazing power that you have with doing a movie like this, which very few movies can do, of course. But it was pretty incredible actually working with, my editors, Dan Zimmerman and Dirk, the two editors on this one. They were both good friends. First time working with Dirk for me, but it was fascinating actually as a process,
Well, and let me ask you too, it's interesting. This is the first film of yours that doesn't involve humans as the main characters. And you're filming on set. I know everyone has like the tracking marks and things like that. So you're building the emotions, through the VFX process. I'm going through that on Mufasa right now. These ape
How
faces.
to get people to relate.
Exactly. Because we evolved from these apes, I think their facial structures, the muscles, they're much more similar to ours.
Exactly. It's easier to imagine that leap, right?
So I wanted to ask you, how much time did you spend really sort of tailoring the sort of like facial expressions of the characters?
Endless amounts of time. It's crazy. Because I would probably spend, it got towards the back half of our kind of year and change post cycle, 7 hours a day with Weta. So that's editing, sound designing, and then going in to do and basically a theater room that we had set up here. So it was all done remotely. We have basically a Zoom where we can talk to each other, and then I have the picture that we're all sharing on screen, and we can just draw together. And sometimes I would take those shots home, and I would tweak this, or I would Photoshop this, or just kind of give kind of cues of what we're missing or whatever it is. But we spend so much time looking at that first take of like the real Owen, for instance. What his eye is doing. What's that feeling that you're getting out of this thing? Why am I not getting this over on this ape? Sometimes it's just the eye shape is wrong. Sometimes we have to go back in and we realize, there's a model change we have to make. And that's a huge, huge problem because now suddenly all the other shots have to get redone. So it's this constant juggle of resources and time. But I gotta say, man, Paul Story, one of our animation leads, freaking brilliant dude, who was another huge, deserves a ton of credit at Weta, that really just understands these artists there. They really understand the translation from the human to the ape, because it's not just a button push. People don't realize that. It's not just like we've captured it, now press the button and convert. It doesn't work that way. There's a really artists that are kind of studying all this data and understanding, why am I feeling the way I'm feeling here? Oh, it's because of this. The eyelid is down 2 millimeters instead of 1 millimeter, something like that. And it makes a difference. It's crazy. Where it's like, this shot's not working, this shot's not working. It's like, we figured it out. It's like the highlight was in the wrong spot. Boom, suddenly it clicks in. It's like all these little subtle things that you get for free, in a traditional movie, you don't get those for free here. So it's just a crazy amount of attention to detail, to that stuff. But it's so much fun, I have to say. It's just incredible.
When you make a film in this style, a lot of what he's saying is what you deal with for basically 4 straight years. You were talking earlier about the world building, going from the trilogy into this one, starting with the funeral of Caesar, which starts in fire. You choose to end this film with a great flood. You also choose to end this film with Proximus Caesar, mythologizing this Christ-like figure in Caesar, corrupting the image of this Christ-like figure in Caesar. And then the whole history of the world is in this thing that he's trying to open, and May is there to flood it. Now, I know the idea of the script originated before you, but that's some heavy shit. We're both from Florida. We're from the South. Very Baptist religious places. Does any of that, just talk to me? I'm kind of poking around a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a neat idea. I mean, it's like there was this line in the movie that had to get cut, but I always loved it. It came from Rocca. And he talks about stories last longer than laws. And I love this idea because Noah is a law follower. That's what he does. And he comes to realize he has to break those laws if they want to adapt and change and kind of, become stronger. And I just love this idea that this biblical event, it's going to be a story that's going to be passed down through generations. Just like that opening of Caesar in the fire scene, there's that one shot of this little kid, which we assume is, Cornelius, but it could be any kind of ape kid watching this incredible, spectacular event of this Caesar character being kind of consumed by flames and his ashes sent to the sky. And as a story that they're going to tell for generations and generations, and it's going to evolve, it's going to change, it's going to, all that kind of stuff. So all the way until we get to Rocca, who tells the story again, but it's slightly kind of off. There's a scene that we actually had to cut for time where Raka kind of retells that story essentially, literally. But I just love that. I love that notion that Josh. It used to be much bigger. I mean, absolutely massive. We just couldn't afford it. It was just too much.
You mean the opening with Caesar was bigger?
No, the flood stuff. Because ultimately, that flood, nothing in there is real. It's all CG. Everything, the world, the railings, the water, everything is full CG. Because there's just no other way to do it. There's just no other way to do it. There's the 2 little shots of it in a parking garage that we shot that ultimately gets all replaced anyway.
So wait, is it virtual production or is it straight up?
So it's basically virtual production.
Okay, all right. That makes sense.
And how you get the cameras to feel real. That was another kind of crazy thing because I thought, I got this. I've been doing this kind of stuff for a while. I know how to make a real camera move. And so I open up this stuff into Unreal. I kind of make a little camera move. I animate it myself. I'd ship it over to Weta and they say, okay, this is it. Yeah. They put it up. They put the lights in it and render it and set it through this whole pipeline. And it comes back and it looks like a freaking video game. Because there's something about this, the subtlety, the language that we've all learned for 100+ years of cinema, the subtle kind of moves that feel real to us. And it's as simple as a push-in isn't straight in. A push-in is usually this, and it has a little bit of a tilt to it. Or it's like there's a dolly track here, and so I'm coming around this way. It's not like an orbit. You know what I mean?
So James shot Mufasa.
Yes, right.
And we're, the building you built, we're in that building. And there's this race in the film. And at a certain point, the kids come out of the thing and it's James. So, it's James, it's Bandry. And we put it in, Joy cuts it, we send it off. And NPC's like, oh, what is this? I'm like, that's what it is.
Yeah,
This is why we sent you this clip.
Right.
This is what it is. So wait, I'm glad you're talking about this because so Wes, back in film school, Wes's thesis film was going to be a fully animated film. We're from Florida. We could not afford to make fully animated short films.
It's a live action film school too, which was really odd.
It's a live action film school. Wes was going to be the first person to make an animation there. So we ended up making a combined animation live action film. And I feel like A Work in Progress is sort of like the starting point to get to this. But what I always loved about your process is you find a way to burrow in and make everything feel very tactile, feel very fluid. I went down to Jim Cameron's place when I started this film.
Yeah.
He's got a whole building that's just about building cameras.
That's right.
You shoot it. Now this is the handheld room.
He makes it look easy. I was looking at James Cameron stuff, and I was looking at Steven Spielberg stuff and Ready Player One and Tintin to some degree, but they make it look so easy, especially after you go through this thing. You look back at it like, God
so I was going to say, so at what point in this process did it become yours? At what point did you feel like, what? I've bent it to my will. I'm doing my thing now.
Probably from the beginning, honestly. I mean, I felt like I had this movie in my head for the most part. Visually, I had it. It was just figuring out the script and just whittling it down to what we could actually shoot and afford to shoot. So, it doesn't. Like I said, it's so unfinished for so long. You really don't know what you have until the very end. By that point, it's too late to change anything. You know what I mean? So it's wild, but. Yeah, but I hear you about the CG stuff. It's like 30 or 35 minutes worth of full CG in this movie, and that was for me a great learning experience. For just how to make movies. All
right, I think this will be my last question. So Planet of the Apes this thing has been around since the 60s, I believe?
68.
68.
56 years, I think.
So there's been so many of these films. They've meant different things depending on when the films landed, who starred in them. This last trilogy that came out, the one that predates yours, was, I don't know, it just got into the public consciousness in a certain way. I think there were kids who watched that first film that Rupert made and then watched the whole trilogy, went to high school, went off to college. And now there are people who are seeing this film. You start off with the funeral of Caesar, which is sort of taking that whole trilogy that this one generation of moviegoers, whether they were teens, preteens, adults, whatever, watched, digested, and now you've moved them into this different place where this trilogy someone made was mythologized, and now you're taking the myth and you're showing exactly that quote you said that I wish was still in the film. Yeah. How does that feel, man? It's somewhat a responsibility, I got to say.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And this is not just my responsibility. There's a lot of talented people, associated with this, including the studio who've been great partners on this. Steve Asbell, who ultimately took over and really kind of shepherded us through. Scott Everson over there too. They've been great partners in all this. and very supportive. And same thing with Disney, Alan Bergman, and Bob Iger over there. They like Planet of the Apes movies, which is great. They let us make this a Planet of the Apes movie, So for me, it's an honor to be a part of it. I'm told I'm the 8th director on the Planet of the Apes franchise. You know what I mean? It's the 10th movie. If we're lucky enough, we'll add more to it. But I can't say enough nice things about all the people that worked on this thing. They worked their asses off, and they deserve a lot of credit.
My name is Barry Jenkins. This is Wes Ball, the director of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Thanks for coming out,
Thank you guys for coming out on Mother's Day. Yes.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.